All right, guys. So this Livewell Viewport window, it's been in the works for a while. I know everyone's super excited about it. Donnie, you're our resident bass fisherman, and this is kind of your baby. In fact, this is off a lid off your boat,
my
right?
boat.
Talk to me a little bit about why you're so excited about it and where it's pretty novel in the bass boat industry.
Yeah, so obviously super excited about this product. I think it's going to be a game changer in the industry. I hope it becomes standard across the board. You know, when people start to see the advantages of having this on their boats. You know, the biggest things, obviously, you can look down real quick. You can see your fish. You can keep an eye on them. You can see your live well pumps running from the front of the boat. While you're sitting down, you're getting run to your next spot. You can quickly look over your shoulder. You can see your bass aren't bellied up.
How often in a tournament, how often during a day are you going back and opening up your lid to check and make sure that they
20, 30 times a day.
Really?
Easily. And each time you're having to set the rod down, get on your hands, knees, open the lid. Fish are freaking out. They're maybe jumping out. So I really feel like this stops that. I can easily either walk back there, look over top of them. If they're bellied up or on their sides, I can quickly see this. I mean, just a quick glance, I can get right back to fishing quickly if everything looks good. Again, I can make sure the pumps are running. So I know usually most pumps are variation timing wise, so you don't always hear them because you're not listening. So you know, you're like, oh my gosh, my pump running, is there water in there? You can easily see that.
So this is news to me, right? I'm not a big bass fisherman, but with the tournament style, I didn't realize, you know, we have clear live well lids and salt water.
Right.
That's mostly keeping an eye on your bait, right? It's totally different for bass fishing where you're checking on your catch and you got to keep it alive, right? For the tournament or else there's penalties.
Yeah. And the tournaments, obviously it's a big deal. You're getting half pound penalties. Some tournaments you can't weigh them on any of that are dead. So it's important in the tournaments, but even on a day-to-day, right, being a good steward of the water and keeping those fish alive if you're going to release them. I know the big thing now is a lot of people like to keep all their fish in the live well while catches and releases become such a big thing. Well, photos on Facebook don't ever change, so can't get rid of those. So the big joke is people are saving these fish in their live wells and then taking photos at the end of the day with their 5 biggest catch, and then they're releasing them.
Gotcha.
So while those fish are still being released, you know, they're being put in the live well for a period of time.
So you got this, you came up with this idea. Sounds all good in practice, right? But you installed this into your boat. Tell us about the first time out on the water.
Yeah, so first time out on the water, we were obviously excited. I'm pumped up. I got my thermostats ready to go because obviously number one concern is why we were taking it out there was heat.
Right.
Number one concern, most live wells are dark, no windows, no nothing due to the heat. Right? You got to keep the water temperature down. So I was really curious to see what it did with the material that we were using. So got excited. I got out there at 6 a.m. I fill both my live wells up with water. I cover one of the windows so there's no sun coming in there all day. Have both units on recirculation, so they're recirculating the same water, not bringing any fresh water in from the lake. And I got my paper out there. I'm going to document every hour what the temperature is of the lake, what the temperature is of the one covered, what's the temperature of the one not covered, and start fishing. Look back 30 minutes later, windows are completely fogged up.
Yikes.
Like imagine getting in your car first thing in the morning and you can't see anything. And you have to wait in your car for 20 minutes for your windows to defrost. I mean, that is exactly what it looked like. It was completely fogged up. And I'm like, oh no, why is this happening?
Screw the temperature at that point, right? The concept, you're not able to see through it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I was almost like, this isn't going to work.
Yep.
So what you do, you came back Monday,
well,
tail between your legs.
Obviously kept fishing that day. So the temperature test still was important, right? At least to get a baseline and try to understand how much temperature. So I stayed out there from 6 a.m. to 2:30, checked the water temp every hour and documented that. And so, you know, what I found at the end of that day and multiple days after that, we did some more testing is, yes, the water temperature does get hotter with the window versus the one without the window.
Okay.
However, the temperature difference that I saw based off the day, whether it was clouds, wind, you know, not just the wind, obviously, but the clouds, where the sun is, you know, what time of day it was anywhere from 1 to 3 degrees from 6 a.m. till 2:30, which is a normal tournament that ends at 3.
Right.
So very minimal. And not only did I find that within reason, I also noticed that the lake temperature was exactly the same. So it was increasing anywhere from 1 to 3 degrees
throughout the day, or if you're in deeper water where there's more water flow or something
You're
like
saying
that.
the lake water was closer to the one with the window?
Correct.
With the whatever?
Correct. Obviously, the one that was in the shade the whole time without sunlight was 1 to 3 degrees cooler than the window and then also the lake. It was
Which
cooler.
probably depends on where you take the temperature of the lake, right? If you go take the temperature of the lake, in the shade, it's probably a little bit different than in the shallows in the sun.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, there's definitely variables there as we talked about, right?
Yeah.
Fish science, right?
Right.
I can only go so much, but those are the experience that I've had. And I found like the material that we started with, that 1 to 3 degree swing, was within very much reason to keep those fish safe and not have fish die because of the hotter water.
So you came back off the water at the end of the day. Temperature swing you felt like was absolutely reasonable for us to move forward with this part, but just not really working for you with
None
the
of it
fact that
matters. You
it's
can't see
fogging
through
up.
it.
Yeah, you
Right.
can't see through it. I don't care what the temperature does, right?
So
Yeah.
what was the next step in that process?
At that point, I brought it back. We worked with the guys at work, and we started researching new material that would be fog resistant of sorts. So we did some research, and we found some material that was has some UV resistance and a heat blocker as well during this process of trying to find some material that was anti-fog. So that was exciting, right? We wanted to put to bed the concern about the heat. I was like, well, I personally feel 1 to 3 degrees is fair, but other people may not, right? So now that 1 to 3 degree swing could be half a degree, degree and a half, and whatever that wanted to be at the time when we first found that it was, we had to gather some more information.
So the treatment blocked both, UV heat treatment, but also helped prevent the fogging that was happening there.
Well, it's two different treatments.
Yeah, not
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So the material itself was UV and heat resistance, right?
Gotcha.
Again, we just kind of stumbled upon it looking for an anti-fog pre-purchase, sheet of good that had an anti-fog component to it. But after finding that material, there was none that they had to be coated, right? So at the end of the day, the material that we bought, no matter where we went, we'd have to buy the material.
We tested lots of material.
Lots of material.
This was your project, but
Right.
I remember walking in the prototype area and seeing a bunch of different material. And then I think we found one that we felt really good about, but the treatment didn't adhere.
Correct.
Long term.
We tried some that we had like a film anti-fog that the company said would work well. It peeled off. It didn't work. It didn't work on the CNC machine because it would rip it because it was a film.
And that's why it's just taking so long. I mean, in so many ways, you go, this is a Livewell lid. We build thousands of Livewell lids.
It's been around the fishing world forever.
But once you came back, finding that material that had the right fog resistance, the right heat resistance, and that could actually hold up, that was a bear of a project.
For sure. It took us a while. We multiple samples, multiple companies till we finally found one that could treat the material with the anti-fog, which also had an anti-scratch property to it as well.
Nice.
This was an actual coating, hard coating, kind of like a ceramic or something you dip, and it gets hard over time instead of a film that gets laid on kind of like tint.
And so you've obviously, with this material, you've taken it out on your boat quite a bit. It's what we're looking at here.
Absolutely.
Right. And so like the anti-fog, talk to me a little about it, because it's not going to be aquarium clear.
Correct.
Right? I mean, it is, what's the purpose of the fog, or what's the goal?
Yeah. So it's not a window. So it's not like you see on offshore boats where you sit there and watch your fish like an aquarium swim around. This window is exactly what it's made for, which is you're looking to look down, you're going to check on your fish, you're going to see if they're bellied up, you're going to understand your pumps are running. Me personally,
It's a viewport, basically.
in the viewport, I have experience personally, and I'm sure most fishermen, if you fish enough, have put fish in your live well and turned the live well pumps on, only to go back a little bit later and find that you didn't close the drain. So as the water's pumping in, it's literally just going right out the back of it. So those things make it really nice.
So the anti-fog, it makes the water bead up, right? So as opposed to a fog, it all beads up. So you'll still see the beads, but you'll be able to see.
You'll be able to see there, right? It's not designed to, again, watch your fish swim around and see minnows in there.
Right.
It's designed to see big things, right?
White bellies.
White bellies,
Yeah.
Pumps running.
So while you can still easily see through it, yes, there will be some condensation on the bottom of the lid.
Okay. Very cool. So you got that out. We fixed the venting. Well, what else we should talk about? These vents that we added to it. So what's the story here?
So while the anti-fog worked great, we wanted to improve it even more. So after doing some research, we decided we needed to add some type of airflow to this to help the condensation to allow the heat, not necessarily the heat, but the condensation from the heating of inside.
It's like a greenhouse effect, right? Without the vents, you're getting that condensation and everything that's off gassing without having some vents there.
So we added these vents to allow that gas to escape from the live well. Now, after thinking through this even more, we actually added some additional bonuses to those slots that we weren't thinking of. Initially, it was just for condensation. Now we realize that obviously those bass release metabolic gases from them. So this allows that to release from the live well as well. In addition, obviously heat rises. So with that condensation is heat. So any heat buildup is going to help that escape from there. So while it was made specifically for condensation, I think it has some additional benefits to it as well.
And this is the latest one that you're fishing with now. You feel like this is a finished part you feel really good about.
I feel like it's a finished part ready for anybody's boat.
So we talked about light a little bit from a heat perspective, right?
Yep.
But we haven't talked about it from a fish perspective. I know there's some people that have pushed back and said, hey, the fish are calmer in the dark live well, and certainly there's some merit to that. But talk to me about what your experience has been there.
Yeah, so my experience, during the testing of covering one and not covering one, and just being on boats my whole life, normally when you open that live well, those fish freak out, right? And I feel like it's just a big jolt of light. They're sitting in a dark room, and then bam, you take somebody. It's like taking someone in a dark room and then having them walk out of the room and hitting them in the face with a light bar. You know what I mean? It would shock you, right? And so you freak out and you go, oh my gosh, let's escape. We have light. Let's go.
Right.
What I found from my experience with this is those fish find the shade in the live well and they sit there with their face in the shade and they don't move. So when I open that lid, they're still in the shade.
They're just chilling.
They're just sitting there, just like they would under a piece of cover. They're not moving. There's natural light in there. So I feel that they've, fish science, I feel like the fish have been more calm. They seem to not panic when I open that lid.
That's interesting.
It's interesting. I was surprised because I wasn't sure what was going to happen.
Opposite, right? I mean, you kind of flipped that argument on its head, right or wrong. Again, it's a lot of fish science. This is what my experience has been.
My experience,
I think, but certainly, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, the change in atmosphere is the extreme that creates the extreme reaction.
You got it.
Yeah.
And again, they're obviously real science says, a darker room, darker environment keeps fish calmer, which again, there is shade. That's another reason why we didn't take the whole lid and make it clear. Not only would it add more heat to the water, it would also not provide any safe shade for those fish to get out of the sun.
Gotcha.
Yeah, which I mean is a good segue. Another objection or thing to think about is we feel this is strong enough to stand on. I mean,
Absolutely.
What about making it a little bit larger? I think that's maybe part of the reason.
Part of the reasons, obviously, we're trying to keep two reasons of why it's safe to stand on. Number one, but number two is people are concerned about tripping hazards. So we're trying to keep the material size down, the thicknesses down. There's a lot that went into it, and the cost down, obviously, right?
Right.
Thicker material costs more money. So
you were saying before we filmed as well that this is generally a larger size lid for a live well in the industry.
In the bass world, the bass live wells have gotten smaller and smaller in a lot of the newer boats. This is a larger lid, and we added a lot of screws. They're through bolted. This is extremely strong and durable. You can stand on it. You can jump on it. It's going to take the weight that a normal fisherman's going to do. Also with keeping the thickness of the material down, we've prevented a trip hazard by back cutting the frame to where it's only a 1/4 inch proud. It sucks down into the carpet.
It's not much prouder than this Perco latch here. So
if you have SeaDeck on your boat or you have carpet, it will not be sitting any less than a 1/4 inch proud or more than a 1/4 inch proud.
Awesome.
Okay, so we feel good about it from a standing perspective and a trip hazard perspective. How about installation? Because, of course, I know one of the major initiatives is going to the boat builders,
Correct.
right, and trying to get installed on new boat builds. So for many, that would be a kind of a non-issue. But yeah, I know that there's going to be boat owners that want to understand what kind of project they're getting themselves into. So you did this.
I did this.
Are you a handy person?
I'm not very handy. I'll be the first one. My family can attest to that.
So what went into it? What do you do?
Yeah. So this has a trim ring on the bottom of it that is used to close out the inside of your cutout, right? So you get your cutout. You take this. I set it on top of the live well, and I traced out with a permanent marker where I needed to cut
on the actual top side by the carpet.
On the top, on this side on the carpet, so I knew where to cut.
Gotcha.
At that point, I took a 1/4 inch drill bit. I think it was a 1/2 inch, and I drilled a 1/2 inch hole in all 4 corners.
Okay.
At that point, I took a jigsaw. I cut the hole, and I'll tell you, the first one looked rough. It was all jagged. The cutout wasn't straight. But
is it aluminum underneath there, or
it's 1/8 inch aluminum?
1/8 inch aluminum,
and then it has the foam on the bottom. The carpet obviously wrapped around the whole thing. So I cut the hole, super jagged, but thankfully now you have the foam coating. You have the trim ring on the inside that closes it out. That gives you a nice finished look if your hole's a little off.
Gotcha.
Obviously, by the time I got to the second one, my hole cut was a little bit straighter, a little bit nice and cleaner, but wasn't too concerned knowing that we could trim this out on the bottom and have a nice clean look. Also, while the trim ring was on top, we went ahead and dotted all the holes so we could pre-drill the holes for the screws. After that, put the top on, put the trim ring on, screw it together, through bolt it, done. Took about probably an hour, realistically. By the time I got them off, nothing crazy. By the time I took it off and got the tools and got it cut and figured out how to cut the first one and really get it dialed in, the second one went much faster than the first one. Let's just say that.
So definitely from an aftermarket standpoint, you feel somebody that's relatively handy would be able to install this.
Very handy. Yep. Super easy.
Okay.
Awesome, guys. Well, look, this is a big part that we're really excited about.
Yep.
And, I want to make sure, is there anything else that you can think of that's worth discussing or worth considering for someone that is thinking about maybe adding this to their boat?
Nope, I don't think so. I mean, like you said, it's very straightforward. It's a window, right? I'm not going to sit out here and try to sell you and tell you it's going to catch more fish, right? You still got to go out there and catch them. You got to throw the right lures. You got to do the things, right? But it is going to give you more casts. It is going to give you a peace of mind when you're on the water. You're going to be able to quickly check on your fish, more frequently even, to make sure you're taking care of them. And you're going to have that peace of mind going, I can fish more effectively and efficiently by not stressing about, are my fish alive? Are they upside down? Are my live well pumps running?
Yep.
Awesome.